Hey, good morning. From Solder Smoke headquarters in Rome, Italy, this is Bill Mara, N2CQR, also known as M0HBR. I'd like to thank the organizers of the RSGB convention, especially Brian, G8OSN, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. I had hoped to come up and be there for the convention, but it just didn't work out and I couldn't get away, so we're going to have to make do with a virtual presence. And given the fact that we're all victims of the knack and technically oriented people, that somehow seems appropriate. I really wish I was at the rally, or what we call the Hamfest today. The Hamfests and rallies are very important to me, as they are to all radio amateurs, as they are to all true knack victims. And I started going to Hamfest in the United States as a teenager. I'd like to share with you a quote about Hamfest, and I'm sure this applies to rallies also. This is from Gene Shepard, the great American humorist, author, and comedian, who was also an amateur radio operator. His last call sign was K2ORS. Let me see if I can get you the quote. There we are. Let's see. I have this. I have this in the book Solder Smoke. Where am I? There we go. I have this in the book Solder Smoke: A Global Adventure in Radio Electronics, and I have one section on rallies and hamfests, and I have here: a hamfest is essentially a flea market for radio fiends. Gene Shepard wrote that at around the age of 12, people come to a crossroads. And Shepard says, and I quote, "One path leads to success, the other to ham radio flea markets." Gentlemen, I guess we're on the second path. You know, I thought a little bit about maybe making some comments about how U.S. hamfests differ from UK rallies. And when I started going to the Kempton Park rally near London, I was immediately struck by the fact that our British cousins began their hamfests at a far more civilized hour. I guess that shouldn't come as a surprise. It was generally much more, I guess, civilized is the word. In the States, you better be there if you want to get any of the good stuff. You better be there at what we would refer to as O-Dark 30. And I can remember getting to many of the especially the winter flea markets in the States, and arriving before dawn, and finding myself already in competition with some very eager other radio amateurs who were very eager to find the really good stuff. You know, in this, I don't know if it applies in the UK, but in the States, the rule is if you keep your hand on a piece of equipment while you're discussing its characteristics with the owner, then you sort of maintain rights to be the purchaser. I have a friend in Virginia who, when he went around in the flea markets, he would always ask the owners of the equipment, "Does it work?" And you know, very often they were honest with him, and they said, "Yeah, no, this piece of equipment hasn't worked since the Great Depression." And even then it didn't work very well. But whenever he was told that a piece of equipment didn't work, he would surprise the owner by immediately replying, "Good, I pay extra for that." Of course, I think everyone in the audience will probably understand why he pays extra for that, because of course it gave him the opportunity to fix it, the thrill of the hunt, the joy of the troubleshoot. That's what he was after. So yeah, I remember he paid extra for that. I often thought that at rallies, and this is something I observed both at U.S. Hamfest and at UK rallies, I often thought that instead of wearing our name tags, you know, on our shirts or up on our hats, you know, we should have them actually, or maybe perhaps have an extra set on the tips of our shoes. And this is especially important for technically oriented radio amateurs and for knack victims, because we spend most of our time at these rallies not in harmonious social interaction with our fellow radio amateurs. No, we spend most of our time at these conventions looking down at the cardboard boxes underneath the tables at the flea market. And you know, you're looking through these boxes where all the good stuff is, and what you mostly see of your fellow radio amateurs is their shoes. So you know, you could be standing right next to your old friend John, who you built that wonderful 6L6 transmitter with, you know, 25 years ago. You wouldn't even know, because you are so intent on finding that high current RF choke that you need for your current project that you don't know. But if you look down there, you saw his shoe and you saw his name and call sign, well, there's a chance that you might actually get together. So that's one of my proposals. I think we need name tags for shoes. Kempton Park was the rally that I went to when we lived in the UK, and I enjoyed it very much. It was easy to get to from our location in central London. My son Billy often went along with me. It was a twice-a-year rally, and we went both to the spring and the fall versions of it. Billy used to bring along his skateboard, and because Kempton Park is a racetrack, it's got some really good sloping areas out in the back, and when Billy would get a bit tired of the electronics, we'd go out and he'd be very happily skateboarding along the I guess the outside area of the Kempton Park racetrack. I always remember Kempton Park because that's where I met Tony Fishpool, one of the true greats of the GQRP club and UK amateur radio, and Tony and I met up at one of the Kempton Park rallies, and he gave me a copy of his book on test gear and showed me some of the amazing devices that he had fitted into the Altoids tins. So it was really great to meet up with Tony there, and it's always part of the fond memories that I have of the Kempton Park rallies. All right, I'm going to have to break this because we're sending this to you via YouTube. So this is the end of part 1. Stand by for part 2.